You know, in mythology, some stories just flip everything you think you know completely on its head. This is one of those. It's a tale about a god, his two most loyal gatekeepers, and a paradox that seems, well, impossible to solve. So yeah, that brings us to the big question, the paradox at the heart of this whole thing. Why on earth would a god's most dedicated, most loyal followers actively choose to become his sworn enemies? It makes no sense, right? But as you're about to see, their reason redefines what devotion can truly mean.
And believe it or not, the answer connects some of the most famous villains you've ever heard of to a story of, well, ultimate devotion. It shows how a path of what looks like pure hatred can actually be the greatest path of love. Okay, so our story kicks off right at the gates of heaven, or more specifically, Vaikuntha, the celestial home of the god Vishnu. It's here that a pretty simple misunderstanding is about to trigger a cosmic drama that will span ages. So, let's meet our guys, Jaya and Vijaya. And look, these two are not your average security guards. They are Vishnu's #1 devotees, his most loyal servants. Their entire job is to guard the entrance to his home. And on this one particular day, they had a very, very specific instruction. Vishnu was resting and was not to be disturbed. No exceptions. And then, wouldn't you know it, some visitors show up. But these aren't just any visitors. They're these 4 ancient, incredibly powerful sages who just happen to look like 5-year-old kids. Yeah, thanks to a boon, they had all the wisdom of the universe, but were stuck looking like toddlers forever. So Jaya and Vijaya, they just see a bunch of kids and, well, they do their job. They turn them away. And big mistake. Turns out, when you have all the wisdom of the universe but look like a toddler, you might just throw a toddler-sized tantrum. The sages got furious at the disrespect and hit the doorkeepers with the worst curse they could possibly imagine. They'd be stripped of their divinity and forced to be born as mortals on Earth. So all this shouting, it brings Vishnu himself to the door. And how he reacts? Well, it's not what anyone, and I mean anyone, saw coming. He doesn't get mad. Instead, he gives his completely devastated servants a choice. A really, really strange choice. Okay, let's just pause for a second. Put yourself in Vishnu's shoes. Your most loyal guys get cursed for what? Following your direct orders? What do? Reverse the curse? Get angry at the sages? Vishnu's solution is so much more interesting than that. He comes out and says, look, the curse has to stick. I can't undo it. But he gives them a choice. And what a choice it is. Option A. You can be born 7 times on Earth as my biggest fans, my loyal devotees. Or, option B, you get to come back in just 3 lifetimes, but you have to be my sworn enemies, the kind of villains I'll have to personally come down and defeat. And what do they pick? Without even blinking, they choose the 3 lives. They choose to be the bad guys. They chose to be hated by the one being they loved more than anything. Why? Why would they ever do that? Well, the reason is just, it's incredibly profound. They couldn't stand the thought of being away from Vishnu for 7 whole lifetimes. It was just too long. But as his enemies, well, then Vishnu would have to be completely focused on them, right? He'd be thinking about them all the time. And in the end, they'd be killed by his own hand, which is basically a guaranteed fast-track ticket back to his side. It was the greatest act of love, disguised as pure hatred. And just like that, the deal was sealed. The curse kicked in, and for 3 different ages, Jaya and Vijaya were reborn on Earth with one single destiny, to be defeated by the god they adored. So who did they become? We're talking about some of the biggest names in the Villain Hall of Fame. First life, they were the demons Hiranyakasha and Hiranyakashyapa. Then they came back as Ravana, the 10-headed king, and his giant brother Kumbhakarna. And for their grand finale, they were Sisupala and Dantavakra, rivals to Krishna himself. Seriously, these guys were the A-listers of antagonism. But here's where it gets really interesting. If you track their lives, you see this weird pattern. With every single rebirth, they actually got weaker. Their power, their threat level, it kept going down. Yeah, check this out. It really puts it in perspective. In their first life, they were such a massive threat that Vishnu needed to show up as 2 different avatars, Varaha and Narasimha, just to take them down one by one. Life number 2, as Ravana and his brother, okay, one avatar, Rama, was enough to handle both of them. But by their third and final life, they were basically a side quest for Krishna. He defeated them pretty easily while bigger things were going on. They went from being the main boss to just collateral damage. All right, this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, and honestly, it's the most beautiful part of this whole thing. It's a deep philosophical lesson that's been hiding in their names the whole time. Jaya and Vijaya. See, these two words for victory mean very different things. Vijaya, that's your standard victory. You beat an opponent, there's a winner, there's a loser. Simple. But Jaya, Jaya is something else entirely. It's about victory over yourself. It's that internal struggle where in the end, everyone comes out a winner. So when you look at this story, yeah, on the surface it's about Vishnu getting 3 Vijayas, 3 wins against his enemies. But for the gatekeepers, their entire journey, all 3 lifetimes of being the bad guy, was one epic act of Jaya. They conquered their own desire for an easy path, all to get back to their Lord faster. Their biggest defeat was actually their greatest victory. And that's what this incredible story leaves us with. It forces us to ask ourselves, what does it really mean to win? Is true victory found in crushing your opponent, or is it found in that much harder battle, the one you fight to conquer yourself?